Clint Eastwood sat quietly at a small-town diner, nursing a cup of black coffee. The years had etched lines on his face, but his eyes still held that piercing, no-nonsense stare. Across from him sat Jake, a young man with haunted eyes, wearing the weariness of bad decisions and hard times. Clint had seen men like Jake before, lost, angry, and teetering on the edge. But there was something different about this kid. Maybe it was the flicker of regret in his eyes or the way his hands trembled just slightly when he reached for his coffee. Clint decided to give him a shot. "You looking for work?" Clint's voice was gravelly but steady. Jake looked up, surprised. "You hiring?" "Not exactly, but I could use a hand around my place. It's honest work, pays enough to keep you fed and out of trouble." Jake hesitated, suspicion flashing across his face. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Clint shrugged. "Everybody needs a second chance. Question is, are you ready to take it?" Jake stared at him, the weight of his past mistakes pressing down like a heavy chain. But something in Clint's steady gaze made him nod. "Yeah, I think I am." The next day, Jake showed up at Clint's modest ranch on the outskirts of town. The place was quiet, surrounded by open fields and framed by distant mountains. It was the kind of peace Jake hadn't known in years. Clint handed him a set of tools. "Start with the fence. It's seen better days." The work was hard, the sun relentless, but Jake found solace in the rhythm of it. Clint didn't hover or preach. He let Jake find his own pace, offering guidance only when needed. Evenings were spent on the porch, sharing stories over simple meals. Clint spoke little of his own past, but his presence alone was a lesson in resilience. Over the next few months, Jake made steady progress. It wasn't easy. There were days when the weight of his past mistakes threatened to pull him back, and nights when the streets called to him like an old familiar friend. But Clint's support was unwavering. He wasn't there to lecture or judge. He was just there. And sometimes that was all Jake needed. Clint helped Jake find small jobs through his connections. Nothing glamorous, odd jobs like painting fences, helping with landscaping, or even working backstage at small film sets. But those small wins started to add up. Each paycheck wasn't just money in Jake's pocket. It was proof that he could rebuild his life one brick at a time. One day, Clint surprised Jake with an offer that would change everything. They were sitting in Clint's backyard, the sun casting long shadows over the desert landscape. Clint poured them both a glass of iced tea, the quiet hum of cicadas in the background. "You've come a long way, Jake," Clint said, taking a sip. "I've been thinking, I've got this old cabin up north. Needs fixing up, but it's a solid place. Peaceful. I don't get up there much anymore, but I think you could use it. A fresh start, away from all this." Jake stared at Clint, the words sinking in slowly. "You're serious?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Clint nodded. "I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. It's yours if you want it, no strings attached." Jake was silent for a long time. He'd been given second chances before, but this felt different. This wasn't just a handout. It was a lifeline, a chance to not just survive, but to thrive. "I don't know what to say," Jake finally managed, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm not sure I deserve this." Clint smiled, that familiar, calm expression on his face. "It's not about deserving, Jake. It's about what you do with it. You've got a chance here. Don't waste it." Jake nodded, his eyes misty. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope? A few weeks later, Clint helped Jake move into the cabin. It was a modest place, tucked away in the woods with a view of the mountains. The air was crisp, and the silence was almost deafening at first. But as Jake settled in, he realized that the quiet was exactly what he needed. It was in that stillness that he began to find himself again. Jake started working with his hands, fixing up the cabin, tending to a small garden, and eventually adopting a stray dog that wandered onto the property one chilly morning. He named the dog East, a quiet nod to the man who had helped him find his way back. Months turned into a year, and Jake's life slowly transformed. He wrote letters to old friends and family, mending relationships he thought were beyond repair. And every so often, Clint would visit, the two of them sitting on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon in comfortable silence. One evening, as they watched the sky turn shades of orange and pink, Jake turned to Clint. "You saved my life, you know." Clint shook his head, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Nah, Jake, you saved your own life. I just reminded you that you could." And with that, they sat in the fading light, two old friends, each grateful for the second chances life had given them. Because sometimes it's not about the mistakes you've made. It's about the people who believe in you when you've stopped believing in yourself and finding the courage to believe again.